Welcome back, everyone. We're back with the Performance Matters podcast. Matrixx and Myles here. Eminem chopping up once again. Been a while since we've done our own chop. We've had some awesome guests these past few weeks. It's been great. So
A lot more exciting ones lined up too, so make sure you guys are looking out for that.
yeah, we do have some pretty cool people coming in the next couple of weeks. Actually, I'm pretty excited for. There's particularly one I'm really excited about and chopping it up. So you guys will be in for a treat. That'll be probably coming in April. So we have some pretty cool guests. So hopefully you're all tuning in. Spotify, Apple, and of course YouTube as well. Um, let's start with some wins of this past week. Let's look at the wins from last week. What are like some of your top wins from last week?
Well, it's kind of funny. A couple of the potential commitments I alluded to in a couple of podcasts back. I said we had some commitments coming.
Yeah,
We couldn't talk about it yet. We still can't talk about it, but a couple of guys have committed this past week, so we're super excited once that gets announced to be hyping that up. And actually, a couple of guys that actually want to have their commitments right here at the facility, which is
It's always an honor, right?
an absolute honor. Yeah,
It's always a
like
privilege, that one.
because we know like it's cool for the kids to have it at the high school or at their club or whatever it may be. So for them to choose to come here and have it is no bigger blessing than that. So
No, it's fantastic. I think just some shout outs, I think, for commitments, at least we can talk about the Rapids 18U boys team under Coach Jacob Barker. He's been doing a fantastic job this season. You have like, I think four commits so far. Ian McQueen's going to Guelph. You have Cole Waterman, he's going to Brock. You have Tayton, he's going to Niagara College. And we have Oz, right? Austin's going to RMC. So
that's like that's like a third of the team, if not more.
yeah,
so
it's
incredible job by all
fantastic.
these
Yeah,
guys.
congratulations to those guys. But that's the culture that we're trying to create, right? Like the higher standard we have of like, hey, this 18U A team is supposed to be, at least from the 18U level, the 18U A team, whether it's the boys or the girls team, is supposed to be the pinnacle of the representation of the organization, right? So in this case with Rapids, like, hey, your 18U A boys team is supposed to be the cream of the crop. But this is the team that the younger developing ages would look to strive to be. And when you get to that level, obviously I think a goal for a lot of them would be, I want to continue the elite performance standard, which goes on to post-secondary being the next step. So I think having a big pool of guys that are actually committed and have earned the right to represent a university or a college at the post-secondary level speaks to the program they came from. And that by definition is going to create more great athletes that go into that program, because if they feel that that's the place that they can live out their high performance aspirations, it's proven now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that
Success breeds more success,
success
right?
breeds more success. I think
Breeds
that,
and attracts success, I guess, is kind of both sides of that coin.
exactly. Like it's a necessity. I think Coach Barker's done a fantastic job with this particular group of guys, and I'm excited to see that many guys commit, but also excited to see the rest of their careers, right? And
Absolutely.
it reflects really good on the boys program for Rapids. I think it's going to keep growing strong, and even with the coach Tim DeVries and his group at the 16U level, they're doing fantastic work as well. They're very hungry, very driven, very attentive young guys. So there's a lot of highlights coming just from, I would say, a lot of exciting things coming up.
Absolutely. Those guys already got that post-secondary mindset. They just happen to be in grade 10, but when
They're still young,
they
but
got
they're living the high performance lifestyle.
every single guy.
They're living the thing. They're not just saying the words.
Right.
They're living the experience, and I think that's important, right?
And statistically, 100% of any roster probably will not go
Never.
post-secondary,
No,
but
it's
those kids will
tricky.
carry those skills with them through their life and those habits, and that's equally another win that I think is oftentimes overlooked. Right?
Yeah.
We want every single kid to play post-secondary if that's their goal. Obviously, that's not realistic.
No, it's
But
not.
nonetheless, we like chasing those unrealistic things and changing the standard. But nonetheless, like those guys that are in that kind of grade 10 age team that we're talking about, they're going to be able to carry those skills throughout their life, no matter what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
These guys will be hireable. These guys will be great citizens of the community, right? So equally to the sports side, that's huge too. That's something I'm equally proud of.
No, I think having a standard, and again, they're not always going to get there, but the motto reigns true: aim small, miss small.
Right.
Aim small, miss small. If you're striving for post-secondary, even if you don't get it, you're still going to get some value of the lessons you've learned, the process you've built, the systems and
Absolutely.
adversity you've went through, the discipline you created. You're going to be successful in some fucking regard.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's never a wash because you just didn't get the thing. And you're not guaranteed success is a quote unquote outcome. Getting post-secondary is an outcome,
Right.
You're not guaranteed it. There's still a window of failure that's likely, but it doesn't disregard the whole process you've built
Exactly.
to mimic that experience. Like, hey, this is what I've been striving for. But you've created a lot of great things along the way to get there. Even if you don't get it,
Right.
you look at what you've built. You know what I mean? It doesn't devalue anything you've done.
Right.
Like it's
So now you take that same process and apply it to whatever.
exactly. It's a system.
That's
it's a
such
framework.
it's
it's
such
a
a leg up
framework.
on everybody else that hasn't done those same things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now I'm excited, obviously, because with the seasons kind of coming to a close for a lot of sports, which fuck man, you're looking back, we had some stellar performances from all our kids that are at the post-secondary level or even at the high school club level, like a lot of great performances, and we're not done yet. But now we look towards my favorite time of the year being the off season, right? And I think some of our college kids are already in the thick of it, and it's kind of cool to see that hunger, that drive, and kind of that refocus as we head to the 2025-2026 season.
Our in season.
Our in season, yeah. It's our favorite time of the year. Our in season.
Watching them compete and dominate is the most fun part. Well, arguably, but when we can have the most impact is this period of time. So that's kind of funny. Like, I find that's kind of how I joke. Like, it's their off season, it's like our in season because we can have the most impact, right? At this point in time,
we have a little more flexibility and freedom that we can really strive for adaptation versus just hoping to optimize the tools we already have. Now we have the ability to create and rebuild and
pulling back that slingshot. That's what Mike always used to say. Mike, he's like, we're pulling back that slingshot.
That's right.
Those really tough days in the summer, when he's still moving crazy weights or running really fast, or whatever. He's like, man, I just feel like I'm in the trench. But he's like, I'm just pulling back that rubber band. Once we do a little deload, once I go do my taper into camp, I'm letting it go. Boom, I'm going to be, leaps and bounds above everybody else who was maybe not putting in that same work, right?
Oh, it's 100% true. And right now, I love a lot of the guys and girls that are off season right now, especially for our jump sports. I'll say for jump sports, but this goes not just for volleyball and basketball, even some of our other athletes that are just starting their off season. We started with some, a couple of things that are more, I guess, just very general capacity, like that 2-week mark. And I'll use our college athletes in volleyball as an example. They have like a 2-week period where it's like, okay, season's over. You have 2 weeks to rest, kind of do your thing, relax, recuperate.
Right.
Then we had
it. You got to miss it.
Yeah, kind of get the itch.
That's a sidebar, but you got to miss it for sure.
Get the itch. And then they had 2 weeks of, okay, like this is just like a general capacity kind of building thing where it's not like intensive. It's like 2 or 3 sets, 10 reps, 15 reps, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sub-maximal efforts just to reintegrate some of those patterns. Reintegrate and reintroduce, I will say.
Yeah, grease the wheel.
Yeah, introduce some capacity building skills. And now we're into our sub-maximal eccentrics, which is fun. I say it's fun, but it's not really fun. It's actually grueling. And the reason what we're trying to do, especially for jump sports, is we're trying to essentially increase the ceiling for potential. So for our eccentric work, and the funny thing is because we know we are stronger eccentrically than we are concentrically, if we're simply just doing sub-maximal efforts, it's not going to really have a direct transfer to the performance on the court or the numbers that they aspire to hit yet. But what we are doing, especially for those that have like beat up knees, we know for a fact that slower volume work actually will increase the cell structure, not just the collagen structure of the tendons of the knee. So that slow force, right, that yielding force actually creates a better stiffness in the long run anyway, versus like high impact plyos, quick drills. They don't really hit that, they don't stimulate on a deeper level, like that feeling. The cell structure needs to feel something. It doesn't get that stimulation. Versus in high impact stuff, the collagen's just feeling it, right? But the slow force stuff, the cell structure and the collagen feels it, which actually will lead to a better, healthier tendon in the long run, a more pliable tendon that has a higher capacity for impact repeatedly. So that's what we're doing the eccentrics for. Now, building on that, submaximal, there's not going to be much transfer. Why? Because we're stronger eccentrically and concentrically. If we're moving submaximal weight, even if it's at a higher tempo, like 6 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it may be, and we're still able to concentrically move the same load, we're not really tapping into our full eccentric ability. But that's okay for now, because that's not the point.
It's the precursor, right?
It's the precursor. We're trying to simply build capacity in that lengthening phase. Like, let's start stretching the sarcomeres. Let's start, breaking those cross bridges to build them back. Then we're going to introduce now maximal eccentrics and hopefully super maximal eccentrics. And there's a variety of ways we can do that, right? Obviously, weight releasers being a big one, but if not, there's hand-assisted drills and different variations, single leg to double leg, stance stuff we can do. And that's now where we're going to start making our money on it. But it's painful as well, right? So we're still going to hammer that cross bridge ripping, that we're going to try to build that cell structure. But now we're actually going to tap into our eccentric ability, because now we're going to be using loads and durations that we can't physically concentrically contract on our own. We need assistance. But now we're able to target that eccentric ability. And by doing so, right, that increased capacity, we're essentially narrowing the V over time, right? If I can train eccentrically at a heavier load and kind of hit that threshold, my ability to break and stop momentum to then transition to a concentric or propulsive action becomes greater, right? So even if I jump, I don't know, let's just say I jump 20 inches and you jump 20 inches, but I get to 20 inches first,
Right.
I win.
You're going to win the rebound, the jump ball, the block, whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So it's like, even though we jump the same height, if I narrow my V and your V is wider than my V, right? My ability to get to that 20 inches is going to be faster than you, which means I win, right? Now, if I'm trying to increase the vert, that's obviously a plus, right? The whole thing is trying not to just get there faster, but by doing these things, we should increase our ceiling. And then once we increase our ceiling, if we widen that gap, now we can work to pull the floor again. So, okay, we've increased this great physical capacity for our ability to handle eccentric loading and propulsive action. Now we can fill that gap with concentric stuff and then bring the floor to match the ceiling again. It's a simple staircase effect, right? You raise the ceiling, you bring the floor. You raise the ceiling, you bring the floor. It just keeps going, repeat. And that's where our thresholds can be. But it is painful to get there, and it's not really possible. I wouldn't say not possible. It's not really practical to do this in season because of the stress it takes on the body and usually the time it takes to see results and feel better again, right?
And the potential soreness too as well.
Yeah, that's a huge indicator. So now it's because we have time in the off season where practices are less and the expectations and everything else are less, we have that time to actually adapt to these things. Versus in season, obviously it's like, I hate using the word just maintain because I think there's always a time to develop and get better. But in season, it's not as practical because of the other stress demands that are now imposed on them. It's not as practical to do those things. We don't have the time. So we have to focus on more propulsive, concentric actions as our main focus point to just hammer expression and refine expression. This is right now is our function. I call it function phase. You know, this is us building capacity, functional ability, so then better express when it matters most. Right now, it doesn't matter.
Right.
This is our time to do that. This is why I love this time of year because it's really going to challenge our athletes to work on that capacity. And there's so many good things that are coming from it anyway, but that's what I'm excited about. I think kind of seeing that transition and how they're adjusting right now. And I would argue it's going to, I want us to expose weak points. And this off season is, and how we started the program right now is just that.
Right.
They're feeling things they haven't felt before. They're in positions that are uncomfortable because they haven't had the time to work on them in season, or it wasn't as big a priority in season because it wasn't necessary at the time. Now it's like, okay, if we're going to really hammer relative weak links in your chain, we need to
find them first.
We got to find them.
Yeah.
We're going to expose you. It's like, yes, you can do a full range squat, no problem. If I add positional holds,
you look good at the top, you look good at the bottom, you look like a mess in the middle.
Exactly. Right? So it's like now this is good, and I would encourage athletes like, don't run away because you're bad at them or quote unquote like not good at them or whatever like that. Be grateful for the challenge of exposure. Like, okay, I know where my weak links are now, and now we can hammer the fuck out of them. You know what I mean? We're not going to run from them. It's like, no, this is good. We exposed a weak point. We exposed a relative link in your chain that if we hammer this, the rising tide will raise all ships.
Right.
If we hammer that, we will get better by default. Everything else will get better too. So like, let's not run from it. Let's go through it. Let's ride this wave, go through it.
Right.
Because we have the time to.
It goes back to what I said a couple of podcasts ago as well about trying to make collegiate strength coaches' jobs easy by training that guy so well. So my point being, these slow, controlled, and then heavy eccentrics are also just a really good way to learn how to move properly.
Yeah, builds a good pattern.
And have good patterns, right? So it's funny. I remember the first time back in college when we didn't have weight releaser, so it was like, find a weight where you can control it down for 4 seconds and you need a buddy to help you up on the back squat.
Some assistance.
Yeah, and I remember Coach Tyson, absolutely brilliant. And I was asking him, like, why are we doing this? Hoping for an answer like what you just gave, which he's totally capable of. And he just like looked at me and he was like, because it's just a really good BS indicator. Like, you got nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sweet. Like, he's like, because if you don't know how to squat, like, you're going to get exposed real quick there of how to squat or how to, if you're really just kind of like flying through the positions and relying on momentum and stuff like that. Or if you're actually controlling and owning your positions and being able to be strong throughout them, right?
It's big, especially because we train so many jump athletes. It's about building economy and it's about building economy in the movement itself, but being aware of like what controls what. So for example, a lot of them, they want to improve their approach. Like that's a big standard for combines. And whether or not I agree with the transfer of the Vertec is irrelevant.
The game's not changing.
The game's not changing.
Yeah.
But to really get better at an approach is like you really have to increase horizontal momentum.
Right.
But then you have to have a really fast braking ability to transfer it into a vertical output. Like you need to be able to transfer horizontal momentum to vertical momentum.
Right.
And a lot of these kids, they don't have the horizontal momentum, but also they lack the ability to efficiently brake with an upright torso to go vertical. And we see this a lot with athletes that are taller, because obviously you want taller athletes for sport of volleyball as an example. They tend to be very hip dominant, which is because they have long levers. But we need them to essentially act like quad dominant athletes,
Right.
right? Not saying it's only one or the other. There's a lot of gray area, but for the sake of the argument, that's what they need.
That's what Anthony Cockrell said on his the one podcast. He's like, a lot of these
Yeah.
athletes have never bent their knees.
Yeah.
Like that sounds
They're
so funny. Like
yeah, they're very good. Again, long legs. They tend to be
Yeah.
more. They tend to go where they're comfortable, which is
Right.
hip dominant stuff, which is why a lot of them like that stuff.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, this is also why, because they're more hip dominant, they don't train the anterior side as much in terms of their quad development.
Right.
As much. Not saying never, but not as much. They tend to have jumper's knee.
Right.
And this is a big issue. It's like if you really had truly developed quads and tendons, I'm not saying you'd never get jumper's knee, but I'm saying it would be less severe.
Right.
And a lot of them hide from that because, like, well, it hurts to do it this way, so I do it this way. Again, athletes are great compensators,
And that's a Band-Aid.
right? But it's a Band-Aid. So now you have jumper's knee. So then again, to put yourself in a position where I need to use my quads and at this angle, it hurts. So you find a way to jump differently, but it's not the most effective way to actually get the most out of your expression of that skill.
Right.
So that's why we go back to our offices like, well, this is the time we can expose those weak points. So even though you think you're this and that, like, yes, volleyball players should be more quad dominant athletes, but you're asking taller athletes with different limb lengths to act quad dominant when they're more biased to use their hip. But it's trainable.
Yeah, especially when you have probably 200 or more less jumps per week. Right
Exactly.
Now
So
than
it's
you
like
would have in
we
season.
can afford to dial back on some things, but really hammer some other things to help make this better when the time is coming.
I'm not exaggerating, like hundreds less.
Yeah, like you're talking at least 200 a day.
Yeah.
At least if you do 2 practices, you're looking at 400 or 500 a day.
Yeah,
So
less per week.
right. So it's kind of hammering those points that, you know, we're trying to develop those things, and yes, there's gonna be some discomfort with it, but it's a necessary evil that we have to kind of work through, not run from.
Right.
And I think a lot of players, because they have jumpers knee, and trust me, this past week in particular, we've dealt with physios and everyone else that have been very irritating because they run away from the thing that causes pain. So instead of addressing the root cause of the issue,
Right.
they put Band-Aids on it and say, well, don't do anything. Don't do this, don't do that. And I get where they're coming from. It's not that I don't understand that, but it's also not practical.
And then it becomes easy for the athlete to buy into it because the pain goes away.
Yeah.
But guess what? I can promise you it's coming back.
Sensation does not
The pain is
equal
coming back.
stimulation.
Yeah.
Sensation does not equal stimulation. We have to wrap our head around that. Just because you feel something doesn't make it effective, right? Like, it does not make it anything else. I could sit in my ass for 3 weeks and feel great. The minute I try to do something, I'm fucked. So we have to clearly communicate that. It's like there's levels of discomfort that are acceptable. You're not injured. It's uncomfortable. Let's distinguish that. To what level of discomfort is it? And let's walk that line of capacity, because it'll get better over time. We'll have a better tolerance to it. And that's what's going to be needed to hopefully mitigate the risk of injury in the future of this particular jumper's knee as an example.
Right.
But also reduce the severity when it does happen. Instead of taking 2 days off, maybe it's 1 day off. You know what I mean? For your recovery. So I hate when physios just give these blanket, I call it CYA, cover your ass, like, don't do this. Yep, nope, can't do anything until it's like, well, I get it. In a real world, like, yeah, you take 4 to 6 weeks off of no high impact stuff to give the tendon time to heal, but understand that's A, not very practical because they do play a sport. And B, when they do decide to go back, it's not going to be like 50%, 75%. They're going 0 to 100, and it's going to come back with a fucking vengeance.
Right.
So we have to find those pragmatic solutions that are going to be in the best interest of the athlete, but also it's education. Like, we have to be able to communicate and be like, hey, I understand how you're feeling, but this is just the reality of what it's going to take. It takes what it takes to get there. It doesn't matter what I say. It's not personal. It takes what it takes to have this outcome.
Yeah, it just has to be rooted in truth. Like coming from the healthcare practitioner, there has to be an understanding and an education piece of like, okay, you're expecting the rehab process to have like a 0 out of 10 pain. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Never.
It should probably be around like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. It probably should not last like 48 hours later. Like, these are now you're empowering them too, right? Because now they know what to kind of look for, and they know how to when to feel like. Because sometimes I think athletes start to feel crazy, right? Because they don't know any better. You don't blame them. They start to panic, like, oh, frick, I was hurt, I was in pain. Now I'm coming back, I'm in pain again. Like, have I just regressed? Like, what's going on? So as the healthcare practitioner, if you could tell them, like, listen, searing, excruciating 10 out of 10 pain is not good. That's probably not what we want to be working towards. But if you're feeling like a 3 or 4 out of 10, and it also doesn't spike, and it also doesn't last, like, that's probably what it's going to feel like for a while as you work through the rehab. You teach an athlete that, they go, okay, you know what, perfect. At least now I know how to feel and what I should look for and not look for. And then at least I know, okay, shit, if that feels like an 8 out of 10, maybe I should probably come back and see you again because I think I might overdid it, or let's make an adjustment, whatever. But we need to be able to teach them so that they actually are a bit empowered on their own too, right?
Yeah. And I think this, I understand, like, just because you didn't take a step forward doesn't mean you want to step back either.
Yeah, true enough, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because, like, oh, I felt pain here, I couldn't do this today. It's like, yeah, but you didn't get worse either. Just because you didn't move forward in this direction at the rate you would hoped to have done so,
Right.
doesn't mean you got worse either in this situation. Like,
Right.
It's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, an example is like, okay, in the rehab process, okay, we're squatting, I don't know, let's say 100 kg for 5, and you had some discomfort, you know what I mean? Then it goes away, then you try 110. All of a sudden, the same discomfort comes back, like, oh, it's uncomfortable again. It's like, yes, but
You have the same discomfort with more load.
yeah, the same discomfort
actually
with
a
more
win.
load. It's still
Yeah.
a win, right? It's not exceedingly, it hasn't passed that pain threshold, so it's actually not a bad thing. So it's having that communication, but again, there has to be ownership on the athlete. Like, listen, it's not like a sensation-free world where you're never going to feel anything. Everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows.
That's a lie. I think they're sold a lot of times.
Oh, God, because it's easy to sell that fucking lie.
Yeah.
Holy shit, it's so easy to sell that lie. And then you fight this uphill battle. This uphill battle when they kind of convince themselves. You're like, well, the question I ask is going to be like, what would it take to change your mind?
Yeah.
What would it take to change your mind? Like, would it be ridiculous to say that maybe this is not the case? Maybe there's a different, prognosis here. What would it take for you to change your mind on this?
Yeah.
That's a fair question.
That's a fair question, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if they don't have an answer, it's like, well, then this conversation is probably not going to go anywhere because you either have your mind made up, so there's nothing I can do to help you.
Yeah, it's a period, right? It's not a comma.
It's a period. It's not a comma or a question mark.
Right.
So where do we go from here? You already
Right.
made your mind up? That's fine. You know what I mean? And I think again, this circles to a lot of topics we've already discussed, particularly with accountability, ownership of the athlete, right? If they're enabled, if their behavior and thought process are enabled, whether choice of their own or not, they have their minds made up. It's like there's nothing anyone can do for you.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's like if you want to get better, understand that it's going to take what it takes to get there. It's not going to be a straight path. It's going to be a lot of bumps and bruises on the way, but you're more than capable of handling it. And here's what this is probably going to look like. Here's what you're going to feel, and there's going to be some adversity along the way, but we can manage it. And here's how we're going to go about doing it. But the minute adversity comes, you can't just say the buzzwords and all of a sudden back down again and be like, well, no, it's because of this. Like, well, the more responsibility you take upon yourself, the more control you have of the outcome. Pointing fingers doesn't get you anywhere.
Right.
Right. And furthermore, that's why elite athletes are elite. You know what I mean? Like there has to be that understanding. And I think not just the athlete, but parents have to be on board with that too. It's like if this is something that your athlete kid is going through, like help educate them too of what this is going to look like and let them make those mistakes, let them learn and teach them that and say, hey, this is what you want to do. Understand the path that's going to get there. And not everyone's guaranteed the same outcome.
Right.
Right. That's because you show up and check the box. Doesn't mean you're entitled to start, to
Right.
win, to get a national championship, to get a scholarship.
Right.
You don't show up to what? You just show up to school? You're guaranteed an A? No, it doesn't work that way. Showing up to school is expected of you. It doesn't entitle you to the outcome. That's what the bare minimum expectation is.
It's like you literally just paid cover.
You paid cover.
You got on the team, you got in the club. Like that's literally it, and that's where it ends.
Mhm.
You did quite literally by definition, you did the bare minimum.
Yes, you showed
Right?
up.
And you're entitled to nothing above that until your actions reflect that you are entitled to something above that.
Yeah,
Like, plain and simple.
you get what you earn. You don't
Right.
deserve. You don't deserve anything.
Right.
The only thing you deserve is what you earn. And understand that you're not entitled to just because you do all the things, all the quote unquote right things. You're not entitled to the same outcome.
Right. That's why I think that's a good point too. I remember having one of these post lift debriefs. This is last year, but I always remember because I had such a good response with one of the really highly motivated younger teams, and that's what I said. Like, provincial's coming up. Like, you guys deserve it. And they all looked at me like, yeah. And I said, well, it doesn't matter what you deserve. It's what you earn. And they all went, ooh.
Ooh.
Thankfully, I had a good reaction, but
Yeah.
I had them all high with like, you guys have worked so
You
hard.
got
You
me the
guys,
first half.
I'm yelling, I'm pushing guys. I'm like, you guys work so hard, you deserve this. They're like, yeah. And I said, but it doesn't matter what you deserve. And then they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you got to go out and earn it. I said, no one's going to lay down and give it to you because you work hard in the gym and the weight room and all that. I'm like, that's just the bare minimum. You got to go out and take it.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, the response to that was good with that group.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
It's
It's hard not to. It's especially if it goes the other way. You're kind of like, okay, well, we got to
it
clarify.
probably wasn't for you anyway.
Yeah, probably.
if that message didn't really hit, then it probably wasn't
It
really
probably
going to
wasn't
happen.
for you. It's probably not a good
yeah.
fit. Like just because you want to be elite doesn't mean you're entitled to be elite, man. Like it
Right.
takes what it takes. So it's like if you're not that guy, you're not that guy. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but I think again it circles back to a lot of the topics we've kind of chatted about before. But this is why I'm also excited for our off season. This is why I'm excited for it because number one, I'm excited to see all of our kids. I'm excited to see all of our kids back from university, from their pros, from their leagues, and just catch up with how things have been, how they've been doing. And then I'm excited for them to refresh. And it's always great because you have those individual athletes that go on to do amazing things. And when it's like the bat signal gets sent out and they all come home and they just get back to work and you're almost like revitalized with that work ethic, that true testament to elite athlete, and again, not based on outcomes, not based on national championships and that stuff, but just the attitude of elite. It's revitalized again because now everyone who we've worked with and coached and had the privilege to train, who had that mindset, are all back in one space in one setting again, and they're all just they're all empowering everyone to just get after it again. And I love it because too, a lot of our up and coming athletes that are at the younger ages in high school, maybe going into grade 11, grade 12, that are seeking the same post-secondary or college or pro, whatever level, they get to be around that again. They get to see and be a part of that.
There's no better example.
There's no better example. And again, it exposes you,
Right.
which is what you want. And I think the big crossroads for these young athletes is, how do you handle that exposure? You're going to be exposed to, you don't know what you don't know. So if you think you're working hard, but then you see what someone working hard does, and you're like, holy shit, that's foreign to me.
Right.
You have two options.
Sink or swim.
Yeah. You have
Right?
two options.
Fit in or F off.
Yeah. Adapt and get better,
You're right.
or run and hide.
Pretty simple.
And that's okay. Both
not easy,
options
but it's
are
simple.
okay,
Yeah.
but that's a choice. So it's like, if you're gonna fucking piss like a puppy, stay on the porch, because the big dog's got to eat, and they're gonna continue. They're not gonna suppress themselves to make you feel better.
Well, and this is why a guy like, the viewers or the listeners probably get sick of me bragging about him, but this is why a guy like Anthony Federico is so valuable to the room,
Yeah.
right? Because even like in here right now, when there's kids who he sees who he knows are underperforming what they should be doing, like he has no hesitation to call them out in a nice way, in a constructive way. But he's like, throw another plate on there, man. You know you can do it,
Yeah.
right? What are you sitting around for? Get your next set going. Like just little things like that. People he doesn't even barely know.
Yeah.
And it comes from a good place. The only thing in the summer now is we have 100 athletes with that Anthony Federico mentality. That's the thing, right?
Same athlete. I'm thinking like at least two or three. Immediately, I don't know why, my head goes to Kiara Van Stiegelberg, and we have Alex Roberge.
Yeah, totally.
Those two, they fucking come in, always a great attitude. They know it's gonna be. They know the day is gonna be tough, but they fucking. It's crazy because it's just the fucking demeanor.
Right.
Those two ladies, as an example, they always come in. Doesn't matter how fucking bad a day or whatever. They always come on with a smile on their face, excited to get to work. They're energetic, they're bubbly. It's like, and maybe that's just personalities, but fuck, it's contagious, and it parallels their ability to just handle hard work.
Right.
I'm like, that just to me revitalized me. It gets me excited to go to work. Is people like that?
Right.
And that's just two examples. I can think of like the Melnick clan, like fucking Grace, Dallas, and Parker. They all just fucking bust their ass in here doing all that. And there's a bunch of examples like Tegan, our girl. Oh fuck, I got the mug. Hey, hey, go
Shout out
Who's,
Tegan, man.
Go Who's.
How do you have a bad lift when Isaac is in the room?
You can't. Come on now.
Come on, like
Come on now.
people he's never met. He is like right beside them. He's like in that set with them, hyping them up. Like you can't replicate that. You can't fake that. Like I'm saying, how can you possibly have? It's funny. A couple weeks ago, me and him did that little mic'd up workout on the Saturday.
Yeah.
And like it was fun to do for social media, but like that was way more for me than anybody else. Like that was like one of my favorite lifts I've had in a while. We didn't even have a program. We said let's just friggin' throw down and have some fun.
Yeah, let's fucking throw out the wall, man.
I want to clean and then bench and then just be idiots. Yeah, let's do it. It's like a Saturday, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like those are the guys that always elevate that's like the synergy, right? Like the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts, right? So we got 20 people down there at a time in the room, but like it feels like 30. You know what I mean? Just from it's infectious, it's contagious.
I think, but that's like, I want more of our young athletes. I need more
Right.
more of our high school and club athletes that are aspiring to that level
Right.
to be there.
Mm.
They need to, because they don't know what they don't know. And again,
Totally.
whether it's fault of their own or not, whether it's because they have no exposure or because they've been enabled by their parents or by their coaches, whatever the situation might be, they don't know what they don't know. They're kids. I'm not going to blame them for what those lack of information. But here's an opportunity. You have an opportunity now to go be where the people are, right? That do the things that you're aspiring to do. Observe,
Right.
adapt, learn, become like gain knowledge of what is, gain perspective.
Perspective is the best word, probably. Yeah.
Gain
'Cause
perspective.
a lot of people have knowledge. Actually, a lot of people don't have knowledge. They have info.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
So I want them to gain that perspective. Like, see, this is the person that he's doing what you want to do. See how he does it. It's not what he's doing, because you could do the exact same thing. Watch how he does it. Watch how he or she approaches this.
Right.
The attitude, the ethic, everything. Watch how they do it.
Right.
Now you know. It's like that light bulb, oh shit, moment we just talked about. I need more of that.
Right.
Because that's what's going to set up the next generation to continue on that path of quote unquote elite success.
Right.
But they have to have that knowledge, that perspective to know, like, this is what it takes. It takes when I say it takes what it takes, that's what it looks like.
Right.
Are you doing that? No. Well, now you know. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Are you going to adapt and do it? Or are you going to run and hide?
Right.
And that's fine. But then it comes with certain consequences, and then manage your expectations accordingly.
Right.
You might get lucky, but probably not.
Me personally, I would never leave it up to that chance.
Yeah. But again, that goes
Right.
back to who you point fingers at.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, don't blame your parents. Don't blame your coaches. Don't blame anyone for
Right.
your circumstance.
Right.
Look in the mirror and say, hey, I have a decision to make. I have a choice. I have control. Again, more responsibility you take, more ownership you take, the more control you have of the outcome.
Right.
Why would you leave it to chance and blame everyone else for what you're not doing?
And the more you can reflect and adjust when things don't go well.
100%.
If you've taken the accountability, if you've taken that thing by the reins. But if you haven't, if you leave it all up to all these extraneous factors and all these other people, like you really can't adjust
Yeah.
when things don't go well because you don't even know where to start.
No.
Right?
It's a big education piece.
And that goes back to Anthony. Not even like, it's funny because it's not even always like, hey, put some more weight on. Hey, like, why are you resting so much? Even some guys, I've heard him say like, hey, man, I haven't seen you in a couple days. And I know what he's getting at. And he's got that little, he got that smirk, right?
Yeah, he's got that passive like, hey.
And he's
I
like,
know.
I haven't seen you in a couple days. He's not like, where you at? You know, whatever. It's not like that. Never.
It's like being asked a rhetorical question without being asked a question.
Where you been, man? I didn't see
Rhetorical
you.
statement.
And the kids almost look guilty to answer, right?
Because they know.
I haven't pissed him off. I've disappointed him. And then he might throw a little jab like, oh, you still want it that bad, eh? And like, I think that hurts worse than some bigger, older guy yelling at you. Like, that's, kids don't like that either. But some guy like, oh, you just don't want it bad enough? Okay, true, man. And he's just smirking. I'm like, nice.
Yeah. You don't want that bad? That's okay, man.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
I say those things too to these
yeah.
kids, so do you. But you got a guy with a CFL shirt on there saying it, you're like, oh, I disappointed him.
Yeah. No,
I haven't lived up to the standard, right? So shout out Anthony for elevating and maintaining the standard for us.
It's possible, though. Like, these kids can gain that perspective. I remember an example I
Totally.
had from years ago. I remember Lauren McPhail. Fucking love this kid. But she started with us when she was like 15, like grade 10, whatever that was, like that age group there. And she was tall, athletic. Like, she had all the qualities kind of there.
Right.
But now we're like, okay, it's to get to where you want to get to.
Paid the cover.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Pay the cover. Here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I think she fought me. Maybe she'll deny it. Love you, Lauren, but this is the truth. She fought me every step of the way on the effort part. And again, it takes no talent to work hard.
Right.
Because she was so, I would argue, is because she was so used to being good at everything naturally.
Yeah.
Because of her genetic potential of, like, she was tall, athletic build. She was so used to doing all these things easily that when she became challenged, it was foreign.
Yeah.
It was a little bit foreign to her. And so then she gave some pushback because she didn't know any better yet. So I think she gave some pushback, in my opinion. But I remember a big day was when Jenna Pollock was in the room. And this was when she, I think, committed to Boston College and everything else to go play at the D1 level.
Yeah.
And she was trained the same time Lauren was. And Jenna was doing things, and then Lauren was doing things. And I remember pointing out to Lauren, I said, see how she's doing it? Ironically, you guys, this is the same exercise you're doing that she's doing. But watch how she does it. Are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
See how she does this? See how the intent she puts behind it, the focus, the effort she's putting? She's giving all she had for that same thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't look like her doing the same thing.
You're moving to A to B, and so is she, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
There's levels.
You're not getting A to B the same way.
Yeah.
So it's like this, and then I think that was the eye-opening, like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's when she got it. And then
And
ever
shit,
since,
because she's doing what I want to do.
exactly.
She's going where I want to go.
Is she now, but again, she knows you didn't know. Now you know. And then I think, in my opinion, I think that was a pivotal moment for her.
She's probably become that example now for other kids in here.
Yeah, she goes in, and I remember, like, I love getting these texts when they go to school, like, oh, I hit X amount of chin-ups this time. I'm like, that's fucking amazing, kid. Fuck, good
But I'm
for
not
you.
surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, you're a fucking unit.
Yeah.
And now she's the example that these young kids, like, she's back in the summer. I point out to her young volleyball athletes, like, look at her.
Yeah.
Look at the specimen she is now. Look what she's doing, how she's doing it. Because, again, she was, I would say, in the same position you were. You have some potential, absolutely. But potential unproven doesn't exist. She's proving it.
Right.
And now she's the example that I want everyone else to aspire to. So, like, that is what we're trying to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? I need more kids to see that and hit that turning point and not run from it. Don't be enabled because it's hard, it's challenging, or it's foreign, or because you feel like you're being challenged. It's a challenge.
Right.
It's not an obstacle. It's a challenge. It's a unique, positive challenge where you have a choice to make. You can adjust and become better, or you can run and hide and point fingers and convince yourself however you want. You can tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself and justify why it didn't get done.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is it didn't get done. You're more than capable of getting it done.
Right.
You just chose not to. Right? And that's a prime, I remember that example, and there's a ton of others.
Well,
But that's just one that stands out to me.
Again, that justification is kind of like the mental or emotional Band-Aid, like we said before.
Yeah.
This hurts. My Band-Aid is I literally stop using it. Of course it will feel better.
Yeah.
Now, socially or emotionally or mentally, whatever you want to say with this other thing, you justify it. In the moment, you find that inner peace. You're like, yeah, you justify, okay, that's why. It's going to come back and you're going to realize, like, I lied to myself, right?
Yeah, at some point you're
that
like...
might be the lie I wanted to tell myself, and it helped me sleep at night that night. But, man, why do I keep thinking about it?
Yeah.
How come I can't shake this feeling?
Because deep down you know.
Because you didn't address the root cause.
You know.
Right?
And deep down, and again, you might feel that way, and then everyone's going to patch it. That's why, personally, that's when we were competing, we hated silver medals. We did not like silver medals. So I'd rather win bronze than lose silver. Yeah. I personally never kept silver medals.
At least you won it.
Yeah, at least you win bronze. You lose silver. But I think the mentality in our room, I think this again can be, I think it's very common at high school levels. Like if you lose, and I remember Coach Marty said this too. He said in practice, he was like, if you lose a tournament, you lose in a match, whatever. He's like, you're gonna fucking be pissed. You'll be hated. And everyone you talk to, your mom, your dad, your friends, your buddies, they'll pat you on the back. It's okay, man. Like you'll get them next time. Da, 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 da. And guess what? You know what they do? They go home and they sleep soundly at night. But for some reason, you're sitting there staring at the ceiling. You're staring at the ceiling and you can't shake it because you deep down you know it's not all right. Losing happens, but there's a reason you feel that way. It's not okay though. It's not okay. You know what I mean? You're not accepting.
Right.
You're not accepting the loss. So what do you do?
Right.
Right. So he's like, those kind of people, it's not out of bad intentions or trying to be supportive.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not helping you.
Right.
Right? It might make you feel good for the moment, but it's not helping you. And that's where the blunt honesty, and I think that's why the successful guys in the room were very honest. They're like, yeah, if you lost, the guy's like, yeah, you didn't do this, you missed the shot, you didn't do this, you got to turn the corner, watch the film, and then we got to work on that.
And were they lying?
No.
But see, some guys would be like, well,
no.
Well, but like,
it doesn't matter. It didn't get done. So it's like, but this is the point.
That's what I mean. Like,
it's the point. So I think we got to stop it. Again, if any parents listen to this, please get the fuck out of the way. Respectfully. We have some amazing parents of our athletes. Again, good kids usually have great parents, right? It's hard to have one without the other. But get out of the way. Please let them learn. It's not out of a place of animosity. It's at a place of objective truth. It's like, this is what it takes. You can't just say you're elite and everyone's elite. No one. It can't be elite if we're all elite. You know what I mean? So
yeah, not only that, like if you have to really ask somebody if they're elite, or if you feel the need to tell someone you're elite,
you're probably not elite.
You know, like you said 100 times, a tough guy won't tell you he's tough. A smart guy, you know, list goes on. Like it's just really no different.
Yeah,
like, I'm elite. Did you know that?
I've never had a tough guy tell me how tough he was. So
you know,
they need to learn, and it's perspective based. Like that's why good cultures and good programs tend to have good success long term over a dynasty, because they've established a framework that can easily plug and play with new athletes and senior athletes, and just rotate that cycle of discipline and overcoming and all those kind of things, versus enabling, you know, this woe was me behavior. It's like, it's okay to lose. Losing happens. You can't always guarantee it, but how you handle the loss and all those buzzwords, how do you move forward from there is what's going to be the indicator. Right. Not kind of wallowing in this valley of despair of like, oh, I lost because of this. It's like, well, that doesn't solve the problem for next time, does it? Right. It's like the peaks and valleys of sport, right? The wins are the peaks and the fucking valleys are the loss. But you can't live at either one of them. You can't live in the
visit, but you can't live there.
You can pay rent, you can visit, but you can't live there. You can visit winning, you can visit losing, but you can't live there. Right. So it's really how you kind of educate them on the next step of that, and then let them go through some of that, because it will only make them better in the long run.
Yeah, especially with the young kids, I try to have a slightly different approach where I'm like, hey guys, like you don't lose, you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
As long as you actually let it turn into a lesson, as long as you actually reflect, as long as you actually make the adjustments for next time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you did actually just lose.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. If you're just going to do the same thing over again, then that was a loss.
Yeah.
That was not a learning moment. There was a learning opportunity.
And you squandered it.
Yeah. And that's okay to say that, but they have to be able to handle that truth.
Totally. It's funny because even Coach Irv, like our O-line coach, he used to say to us guys, I hate losing more than I love winning.
Yeah.
And it'll just be like 100%. Such a simple thing, but I'm like exactly what you're saying, even if it's different words with the silver medals, like he just pops in my head so vividly, right? I just remember that over and over again that would be told to us in our room, like I hate losing more than I love winning, and I'm like, yeah, I know 100% where he's coming from.
Yeah.
I know kind of what you're saying with the silver medal thing too.
Yeah. And again, not every program has that again, if you're trying to be a high performance athlete in a high performance program, you have to have you have to pick the club, pick the program, pick the whatever school, wherever that may be, team. That kind of lines up with your aspirations because assuming you're in the right environment, they'll have parallel mindsets, parallel visions that line up well with your goals and your aspirations and your work ethic.
Right.
And that's not for everybody. And that's okay. There's reason it's high performance. There's reason it's recreational.
Right.
And sometimes you have to earn the right to go to high performance. It doesn't mean you're entitled to anything, but you can work hard, do all the right things, and still not quite be at the level you need to be at.
Right.
But it doesn't disregard all the work. There's still an opportunity there where you can always strive to get there. But you can't be high performance and make recreational decisions.
Right.
You can't say you're an A team and make B team decisions. You can't say and act like I'm an A team player, I'm the cream of the crop, and then make C or D team decisions.
Right. Or have C or D team athletes more locked in, making better decisions, making better choices than you.
Yeah, I'd rather have a C team athlete that makes
100%.
A team decisions because that's how you're going to move up. You can't just say the opposite. It doesn't work that way. So a lot of it's the education piece, and I'm hoping in future that people can keep understanding that because that's why I think in our opinion our room is so successful is because we have that culture that has a framework that's systematic and it pumps out these amazing athletes, amazing people.
Right.
Not just athletes, amazing people with great character, great integrity, great work ethic, and they're successful. And when we have a bunch of our kids, we're getting older now, obviously. Like, I remember having kids I've trained since they were 15, 16, and now they've been graduated from university for 2 years. I have a couple more that are graduating this year, and then are entering the workforce. But those lessons and that character is going to be strong enough to handle anything that's thrown at them, and they will be successful. That's the right reason people say they hire athletes like that for a reason,
right.
Because if they can handle the demands and adversity that comes with being a post-secondary athlete, the schedule, the studying, everything else, all those
expectations.
The expectations.
Somebody expects something of you, and that's okay.
Yeah,
you're held to a standard, and that's okay.
And you thrived in it. So it's like you can handle that. You can easily that carries on. You know what I mean? So it's bigger than that. But yeah, that's why I think we have such a good system that people just kind of pump out. And I think a lot of our athletes and people will attest to that. It's not just athletes, but it's just great characters, great people, great integrity that are successful beyond the court, the field, the pool, the mat, the rink,
right?
Whatever. So
yeah, see, you become that person, and sport is just like one arena where you can practice and hone those skills.
Yeah.
But then, like, thankfully, they enter the workforce or their relationships or whatever it may be. They're still the same person.
Exactly.
They're just applying that same skill set to a new arena. But
yeah,
that's the beauty of sports. It's not only it's developing those skills and then continually being able to practice them on a daily basis.
Yeah, they're honed.
Yeah,
they're honed on the regular, and then
exactly.
that makes it easier to transfer into whatever avenue of life comes next. And a big credit to all of our kids graduating this year from university. Like I know Tegan, I know Jenna, they're graduating this year from Virginia and Boston College, and they had a hell of a career, hell of a run. And I'm hoping that if they decide to keep going with it, I'd love to see Team Canada stuff on the horizon or pro stuff on the horizon for them. But regardless if that's a choice of theirs or not, like they had a hell of a run in sport, and I think they can reflect very positively on their experiences and on the work they put in. And I need more athletes at the younger ages to see and witness and be a part of that perspective.
Look at a guy like Dave Picard.
Oh, best story.
Dave Picard is doing research that's like literally going to change the world.
Yeah.
And save like millions of lives.
It's fucking crushing that shit.
Absolutely crushing it. Absolutely brilliant. One of the hardest working people I've ever met. It's like so cliche to say, but it's true. Just please trust me, it's true. And he's literally going to change millions of lives with the research he's doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of that work ethic, I would say, comes from his participation in sport growing up. Rowing, obviously, but I know he played hockey, played a bunch of sports, high school football, whatever, everything. Having played those sports and developing those habits and those skills, now he's just applying it to a greater purpose.
Yeah, this is my favorite story, and we'll finish the podcast with this story because I love this. I remember, for those that don't know Dave Picard, big shout out first off. He's graduating from Harvard University this year. He's in his senior year. I trained a bunch of rowers that all went to Harvard preceding him, and I remember, I think it was one day, I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2019, whatever. I think it was 2019, November of 2019, right before the pandemic.
Right before things popped off.
Yeah, right before things popped off.
Then it kind of proceeded through that.
It was November of 2019. And I was leaving, and I remember going through at the old location, and I see this kid sitting there looking around. I was like, can I help you? He's like, yeah, hey, I'm a rower, and I want to train here. I was like, oh, you're a rower? He's like, yeah, I'm training partners with Evan McRae. I was like, oh, shit, okay, because Evan McRae was Johan's training partner. So Johan went to Harvard. Yeah. Evan was a training partner. Then Evan, hell of a story, triple crowns.
Yeah.
I remember the first time he tripled, like the first term he won for Stotesbury. We were in South Carolina,
yeah.
And I was like fucking excited. Then he does.
All these Americans are like, how are you guys cheering him
yeah,
up?
like, fuck, like our boy fucking won Stoats.
Yeah.
And then he continues to win. He triple crowns for lightweight, which makes him now a huge candidate for the Ivy League, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. He was getting visits. So now Dave Picard is Evan's training partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm liking this pattern.
I'm liking this pattern. I'm like, okay, perfect. Let's get to work. And then works his fucking nuts off. And then COVID happens.
Yeah.
And obviously we know that the Americans were different in their response to ours. They were still training, still competing. And for a Canadian to enter the Ivy League is a lot harder. And now with this extreme disadvantage, it's really, really, really hard.
And you know what a lot of people would have done? They would have said, oh, you know what? It's just not for me. That's
not
okay.
him.
It wasn't meant to be, they would have said.
Yep, but not him. He was kind of middle of the pack. So we just got in there. We found a way to get scores, keep training, during that time. Found a way. And I remember he just worked his bag off. And there was times because Princeton wasn't going to look at him.
Right.
Yale said no. Cornell said no. Harvard was on the fence. And I remember having Johan, Evan, very fighting hard for him on their end. And Dave was just doing the work. And I remember there were so many days he was discouraged, so many days it was just looking bleak and hopeless, but he just kept showing up. He kept doing the work, and I get fucking a little emotional with this shit, but it was...
It felt like a movie. It actually felt like a movie.
It was
better because it was real.
It felt like a fucking movie, and I remember those days it was hard, and he fucking just kept showing up, man. He just kept showing up and giving it all.
Yeah.
And then I remember the moment, because I remember Gomez was in the room, Keaton Woodhouse was in the room. A bunch of rowers, and just everyone was in the room when he got the message that Harvard was going to give him full support.
Yeah.
Which, for those that don't know, full support means like you're in.
Yeah.
So he comes in and says, I did it. And I remember the room just started cheering. Gomez, particularly, he's like, fuck yeah, man. He starts everyone starts clapping in the room. And I remember him and me and him we hugged so hard. He was crying. I was crying. I was so proud because that particular year too, like Harvard, I think it was accepting less than 5% of applicants that year domestically. And then of course, him being international,
I'm from St. Catharines. They're like, what the hell is that?
He fucking did it.
Absolutely.
He fucking did it. Against all odds, he kept showing up when he had 1,000 reasons not to.
It would have been so easy not to.
He showed up, gave it everything he could with the resource he had at his disposal, and just worked his nuts off, and he did it.
Right.
And then now he's doing incredible research at Harvard. He's getting 90s in school, and this year he's in his senior year at Harvard. He's also captain of his team, the Harvard crew.
Right.
Man, you can't. That's it. That's it right there.
Right.
Like. That was, to me, is one of my favorite. That's one memory that I will never. If this stopped existing today, I'm holding my hat on that one.
Yeah, totally.
That is for me my favorite. That is the example I want other kids to see, witness, and be a part of. I need people to see that.
There's so much more that went into that too, like those crazy hard training days after coming from like pouring concrete for 12 hours, working like 6 to 6, then coming in training, then doing all these things. Like there was just so many. What other people would have saw as barriers, he was like, yeah, I guess that's just how it's gonna be.
He did
that's
everything.
just what we're doing.
Yeah, he rode in the morning.
Yeah.
During the summer, he worked pouring concrete, a very physical job.
Yeah, he wasn't sitting behind a desk, like whatever. But
he was doing a very physical job. Then he came to train, and he'd go row again. During the school year, he would row, go to school, train, go back to row. He was working his nuts off day in and day out on his own.
Yeah.
On his own, he found a way. He did it. And now look at him. He did it. And what's the best part is too, like we trained his brother Jamie. It's like a fucking replica.
Yeah. Just
a younger age group. Another replica. Same work ethic, same attitude, same determination, cut from the same cloth.
Right.
And you just know these guys are going to be successful. Right. Whatever they choose to do, they're going to be fucking successful. They're going to dominate whatever arena they choose to be in. And that's the message. That is, it's fuck. When we say it's more than sets and reps and all this stuff, it's like, man, that's the message though. Don't run from that.
Yeah.
That's the adversity you need to go through. It's hard in the moment, but looking back now, like everyone loves that success story because it didn't happen by chance.
Right.
It came from just showing up and doing the work as the best of your ability.
Didn't happen by chance, and it didn't happen overnight either.
No.
It happened by him putting years of, I don't really know if there's anything guaranteed at the end, but I'm going to leave no stone unturned and at least have no regrets, right? And then that's what became of it.
And that, to me, is my favorite part of this. And that story was something I will cherish fucking forever until I'm fucking 6 feet deep. Yeah, fuck. All right.
We're not going to top that for today.
We're not going to top that for today. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, follow us, subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. This is Performance Matters Podcast. Please like, share, and follow, and we will tune in next time. Thank you.
Peace.